All right. What's the first thing that you can see out of that list?
Let me see. Gonna open. Whoa. Oh, with the bad words again. You asking everybody or you talking to me?
Anybody, everybody.
I missed it. What?
Out of this list of topics, which topic pops out to you the most? And then we'll talk about it, how it shows up in a person's life, so on and so forth.
Some of the, do you have a list? And I meant to ask you that. Well, all of the words are on the list because, like, yeah, I don't know if it just means the words sort of they disappear.
They do disappear because it's half the page.
Lord help us now. Mm.
I don't have a big enough screen to hold
Okay.
all of them.
When you send them, do they all come?
Hmm.
Oh my God. Okay.
So which one pops out? Kimberly Daniels in her book said that when she has this list, um, the individual, you will almost always find the one that they have the most, not the most, they have the uh they didn't realize they had a problem with it, and their subconscious picks the word out.
Oh Lord.
So which one?
Contention.
Con You say contention?
Yes, contention.
To argue.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be me.
You argue? Okay. Sorry.
Robin, you have a bad echo.
Yeah, that's because Miss Debbie's not using her Bluetooth.
I'm sorry. Oh, you know what?
Now that I know that you
Sorry.
have one.
I've been had one for the longest. That's all I use.
All right. Um,
Passiveness.
I'm sorry. Passivity.
Uh-huh.
So we tend to connect the dots there. Oh, sorry, I didn't quite finish on the contention. Contentiousness is this. It's not just arguing. It's also a scenario where you are constantly checking the authority of the person that's speaking to you, constantly testing the authority of the person that's speaking to you. So it's got a bit of backbiting to it. So that's contentiousness. Um, the passiveness, or the excuse me, the passivity. Passivity is along the lines of believing that the way things are is just the way things are, and there's nothing anyone can do to change it. There's nothing that I can do anything about it. There's nothing anybody else can do to do anything about it. This is somewhat where passive aggressive comes along. Uh, the aggressive person is always quick to check, quick to find out, quick to, the passive aggressive is all about pointing the finger to everybody else is the reason why I'm in this place. How is passive aggressive different from passivity? Passivity is I cannot do anything about it. Now, as I was stating earlier with the Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So either I can do all things through Christ or I can't do anything about it. One of those two is a lie. One of those two is an identity that God doesn't want you to have. And I'm fairly certain that I can't do anything about it is the identity God does not want you to have. Yes, sir. I didn't know whether you were speaking or farting. Mr. Hot Mike JP, you got something? you yapping about me having bad feedback and then you moving your phone around
I
while...
have a mic on by mistake.
Huh?
Trying to turn my mic off.
Oh. Any other words? Checking live stream, make sure I am not missing anything. You know, this one is one that not a whole lot of people like to talk about. For clear reasons. Since it's the white elephant in the room. The identity of molestation will tell you it's okay to do that. To exercise control over someone else and do to them whatever you want. Because it won't hurt anybody. Every one of these identities are suggested to us on the basis of a lie. It's like, for instance, the passivity, it's okay to say that you can't do anything about it because nobody can do anything about it. It's a direct contradiction to I can do all things through Christ. So it's okay to do whatever you want to somebody because it won't hurt them. I don't know really which is the more painful part about molestation. The lie or the shame. Shame will eat a person up so hardcore on the simple basis that they agree with its truthfulness, its legitimacy to be there, when in reality it has absolutely no place in any person because it doesn't come from God. So the person who's listening to this particular identity and becoming it is believing that doing things to somebody else is somehow okay with the command of love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is severe levels of not loving neighbors or yourself. Because as I put it into the topics on in the book, which I finally was able to purchase myself a book now, be able to say on page, but In the third round of the topics, the section of masturbation got changed. I don't know if anybody saw that, but instead of just being masturbation, it's self-molestation through the use of masturbation. Now, while I was in therapy at the age of 31, I learned something, or not, 31, I was at 36. I went for some Christian therapy. While I was in that therapy, I learned about a type of molestation that is not physical. And some of the conversation that happened before we went live is an example of that. So, when I was 36, went to a place called Unleashed Healing Center, as it was at the time affiliated with Robert Henderson Ministries. And it was 75 miles one way away from me. So I was traveling 150 miles, which was like half a tank of gas, to go let someone teach me some things for about an hour. And the hourly rate was $65. So just to buy a tank of gas and get talked to for a little bit was costing me $100 a day. And I went 3 times. After $300 out the door, I was dry. So, but here's the I think her name was Jeannie. Jeannie taught me this thing about emotional molestation. And it's the idea that, and by the way, the emotional molestation is always personal. It's what we do to ourselves or what we say to ourselves on the basis of, it's okay if I do that, I'm just talking to myself. All right? Emotional molestation is where I don't mind speaking down about me because it's just me I'm talking to. The self-talk to tear myself up is emotional molestation. If I were to go, in fact, I'll do it right now, to ChatGPT, because while ChatGPT has very many different usages, and a lot of people sometimes have issues with how it's used, I want a particular answer, and I'm going for ChatGPT because it doesn't give me, it gives a little bit more of a layperson response instead of a technical response like Perplexity does. So besides Philippians 4:13, how many other passages in the Bible have to do with being enabled to do life in a way that God has designed? There isn't a fixed number. Depends how tightly do you define being enabled by God to live the life He designed. But if we define it carefully, we can give a credible range, show how Scripture consistently teaches this theme. Workable definition so we can count passages that teach one or the following. God empowers, strengthens, or enables people to live righteously. God supplies grace, wisdom, or power to fulfill his need. God works in us and through us to accomplish what he commands. Human weakness is met by divine sufficiency. Philippians 4:13 is a summary verse, but not unique. Using that definition, there's roughly 150 to 200 passages across the Bible that directly teach this concept. It includes the Torah and historical books, prophets and wisdom literature, prophets, gospels, Pauline epistles, and general epistles. This is the 60 to 80 passages. Deuteronomy chapter 30 verse 6, God empowers the heart to love him. Joshua chapter 1 verses 7 through 9, strength and courage come from the Lord. Psalm 18 verse 32, it is God who arms me with strength. Psalm 127 verse 1, labor is futile without the Lord. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, God directs the path when we trust him. Isaiah chapter 40 verses 29 to 31, God gives power to the faint. Ezekiel 36, 26 to 27, God puts his spirit in us to cause obedience. Ezekiel 36 alone introduces spirit-empowered living, which later explodes in the New Testament. In the Gospels, there's 25 to 35 passages. Representative passages, John chapter 15 verses 4 and 5, apart from me you can do nothing. Matthew 19:26, with God all things are possible. Luke 10 verse 19, authority given by Christ. Luke 24 verse 49, power comes from on high. Matthew 28 verse 20, I am with you always. Jesus doesn't just command, he supplies presence and power. Within the Pauline epistles, there's about 40 to 50 passages. Romans 8 verses 10 to 14, there's life by the Spirit. Romans 15 verse 13, power through the Holy Spirit. 2 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 5, sufficiency is from God. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9, power perfected in weakness. Galatians chapter 2 verse 20, Christ lives in me. Ephesians chapter 2 verse 10, created for good works God prepared. Ephesians 3 verses 16 to 20, strengthened with power in the inner being. Colossians chapter 1 verse 29, laboring with his power working in me. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verses 23 and 24, God himself completes the work. Then within the Pauline, here's the general epistles from Hebrews chapter 13, verses 20 to 21, God equips us to do his will. James chapter 1 verse 5, God gives wisdom generously. 1 Peter chapter 1 verse 3, everything needed for life comes from him. 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 11, strength supplied by God. 2 Peter chapter 1 verses 3 and 4, divine power grants all things for life and godliness. So within the Old Testament, 60 to 80 passages. Within the four Gospels, there's 25 to 35 passages. Within the Pauline epistles, 40 to 50 passages, and within the general epistles, 20 to 30. So that's between 150 to 200 passages besides Philippians 4:13. So the idea, there's things I can do in my life. I'm allowed to have this way of thinking. Well, okay. Here is the only situation where you are allowed to have that type of thinking. Stop being a Christian. That's the only way. You are only allowed to have these identities over here if you are saying that you feel like some way, somehow, oh, where'd it go? I have too many things open. Oh. Did I do the wrong thing? No, I didn't. Where is my... if some way, somehow, this list of identities, anytime now, Pooter. Goodness. Must be frozen. Come back over here. Oh, that's why. That's not supposed to happen. Apologies for those out on the live stream. My browser crashed. Restore. Alright. If I was working with Restream, that would have cut my stream. But because I've got the OBS running in the background, it didn't cut the stream. Trying this again. If, for some reason, we are under the understanding that this list of identities is perfectly understandable for you to have it, perfectly understandable that you would need to struggle with some of these, if you believe that it's okay to struggle, then stop being a Christian. Completely stop. Because I can do all things through Christ eliminates struggle. Completely removes struggle. Any point I say that I'm struggling with something, I am saying that God is not good enough for me. And I used to say it all the time. This thing about the memory, I was saying before we went live, that there was a time in my life where I would have a terrible, maybe 3-week memory. And I managed to get into college and a bit of homelessness and back home from homelessness with a 3-week at tops memory. I, of course, couldn't remember very much, and as a result, me doing anything to do with tests where the coursework is 9 weeks long when my memory goes for 3 weeks, that made for some really crappy tests. Couldn't remember jack. So I got back from that, and I remember I had gotten to the point where I lived on my own, and I'm having this issue with remembering things, and I finally scream to God, "Why won't you let me remember things?" He says, "Why? How can I? You keep cursing your memory. I can't curse what you won't bless." And I said, "I do not curse my memory." He says, "How many times do you say, 'I don't remember'?" And in the moment, I said, "I don't remember." He says, "And that's why." I did not realize that I was actively walking out emotional molestation. I was actively going into that place where the way I spoke about myself in such deprecating manner, in such derogatory ways, I was actively tearing my mind to shreds. Or was I? Is it actually a little bit more responsible to say I was agreeing with an identity that said this is what's okay for you to do? When I realized this is actually me agreeing with an identity that said it's okay for me to speak horribly like this about myself, that was the turning point. When I realized that the way I have been speaking about myself is so horribly like ripping books apart. How can I have if I was to take this book, which I'm definitely not going to do because we're not done with it yet, but if I was to take this book and rip it to half, the only amount of only amount of information that I have is whatever I tore off, especially if this part goes. Right? I'd only have this much of the book to know and understand. I wouldn't have the solution. That's what happens when an individual goes into life believing it's okay for me to speak about my life, all the struggles that I got, and everything that I'm going through, because that's where I'm at. I'm just being honest. No, you're not. Actually being honest would be to go for the concept of honor. Honesty, is not honor. Honesty is to speak the truth. We don't have any measure of what is truth or wrong outside of God. So we can't steal from his morality to make up our own morality. So if we're speaking truth, and God makes the truth, and he's got the definition of what is truth, and if I'm saying over myself things he's not ever saying about me, then by golly, I'm not being honest, I'm not being truthful, I'm speaking lies. That's actually honoring God. Actually honoring God is to say things how he says it. So this place of saying, I can have the I can listen to this identity because that's what I'm going through and that's where I'm at. You know what that is? Rationalism. The moment that you have to have a reason as to why you're allowed to do something that God would not allow you or anyone else to do within the parameters of grace, you've entered the identity of rationalism. And the moment we begin to give all the reasons why this is permitted, and this is permitted, and this permitted, we are playing poker. We are playing poker. We are gambling away the identity of Jesus. We are saying what the identity of Jesus is going to show up like in our lives, and 100% of it is not even his identity. How can we call ourselves Christians if we don't sound like heaven? So this great big list. Succubus. How many know what succubus is? Thumbs up if you do, thumbs down if you don't. I got one thumbs up. One thumbs down. All right, cool. I get to talk about this. Succubus is what every male struggles with. Every male. Why do they struggle with it? That's just how it is. Nope. It's because of Genesis 6. And we've talked about this a number of times, but the fallen angel, just to kind of refresh your memory, the fallen angels came to earth and taught the people of earth how to war against each other, how to kill each other, how to have incredible level of technologies. That's how the pyramids were built before there was any measure of applied science on the earth.
weapons, makeup, abortions.
All
All
of
came
that
from
is
following.
knowledge that came to us from Genesis chapter 6. And in that mess came the idea it's okay to see a woman and want to be with her and imagine what it's like to be with her and act it out to what it's like to be with her. And when I dream about her, it's just a dream. No.
Yeah. I'll give the Lord the finger.
The F word, the middle finger, and the succubus all have one thing in common. Excuse me. Picking up over here. I'm not on here forever. Okay. So this succubus, it comes into men's imaginations. It comes into their dreams. It comes into their understanding of how to do life. Okay? It will consistently tell them a perspective about how to treat women that will destroy them. It will consistently tell them ways to treat themselves that will destroy them. So the individuals who tell me about the sexual misconduct stuff that they don't have any stomach for, what you're actually saying is you don't have any stomach for spirit spouse activities. But if you're not saying that you have no stomach for spirit spouse activities, then you are protecting it. And I didn't know that. So from the age of 11, I started to write about sexual stuff. From the age of 11 to about 24, I was writing about it. 23 is when I had my first sexual encounter. Then I had a little bit better understanding about the sexual stuff. But 11 to 24, I wrote about it. 25 to 27, I lived it. Last half of 27 to 20, first 3 quarters of the way of 28, I was either homeless or a homeless shelter. From just past my 29th birthday, I was back home with my parents until the age of 33, at which point I was finally able to move out for good. But in between the age of 11 until the age of 39, I was imprisoned by 46 succubi. And that's a low number. 46 different identities, 46 different ideas of how to treat a woman, and not a one of them was godly. Not a one of them would encourage them to stay around me. So, ladies, if you have this one guy who's just a creep, or you have this one guy who's just it's very difficult for you to understand why he does what he does, or this particular guy doesn't have any great relationship with any woman or any one of his aunts or uncles, doesn't have great relationship skills with people, 100% is ruled by a succubi. Parasuccubi, excuse me. So very, very, it is extremely rare that it's just one succubus. Extremely rare. So it's probably 10 to 60. 10 to 60 various identities within the guy that he has accepted as it's normal to think this way. And so as a result, his ability to have an even conversation that doesn't go sexual is impossible. Unless he's a eunuch. That's the only time. If he has his gonads removed, that's the only way it's possible for him to have a conversation about anything in life and it not turn sexual at some point. So if you know a guy that he talks and his way of speaking almost always goes into the sexual, he is 100% ruled by many succubi. So this is one of the easiest way to remove from all the men the reality that all their stuff that they're going through has nothing to do with them. It's got everything to do with generational curse of masturbation. Yes.
Oh wait, I'm just when you have a chance.
Oh, no.
I have a question.
Let her fly.
Okay, so you have guys this horrible, well, have that situation with your name. What is it when you have women that have the same problem, but on the the spectrum side, that like they can't, I don't know what, they can't really socialize with guys, like they gotta sleep with everybody. They don't know how other to communicate with the opposite sex except for the sheets.
That's the incubus.
Okay.
So
What's the incubus?
incubus is what affects women.
Right.
That causes women to speak nasty. Succubus is why men who are straight turn gay. Incubus is why women who are straight turn gay. So the whole thing of homosexuality has zero to do with the person, has everything to do with being spiritually married to a spirit being.
Okay, but what about the ladies? Not that anything is wrong.
It is a
It's
demon. It's a
I
demon.
know.
It's
I
attached
I
to the
don't
bloodline.
think you do know. I don't think you do
Who,
know.
me?
You. I don't think
I
you
know
do
it's
know.
a demon, guys. Come on.
So
I know it's a
So
demon.
why
I
would be
know
an
it's.
argument?
I was just trying to find out more about it. I know doggone well it's a demon. Everything on this page. I know that.
okay.
I'm just like, I don't know, like what is, I don't know, with a person. I know it's a demon, but like that's the only way they can associate with the opposite sex, that they just go all out in a serious way.
It is not the person doing it. The person at that
Okay.
point is the shell.
Uh-huh.
So whenever I was with
The
someone,
host.
whenever I was
The
with
host?
someone
Uh-huh.
who also had a spirit spouse, it was not my physical body having sexual encounter or sexual intercourse with the second person, as much as it was two altars joining and becoming one altar. So when I feel this burn that I got to go out and find somebody and again have sex, it's not the physical shell that needs anything. The physical shell needs nothing. The altar that had been built because of sexual activity, it needs to
It's
be fed.
calling. Okay.
So the women who treat who are extremely sexual or have no ability no to very limited ability to have relationship with anyone to such a depth where you're able to share everything that's going on in your life and know full well that they're not going to use it against you. If you don't have that, if you don't have any, if you're a gentleman and you don't know any person that you can have a deep conversation about anything that you know for a fact they won't use it against you, or if you're a woman and you don't have any other woman that you know you can share anything with them and that other person's not going to use it against you, you, madam, you, sir, are serving, actively serving a spirit spouse. And it will, here's one of the more weird ways of identifying that there is that either the incubus or succubus in your life. You struggle to have relationships.
Right.
That's it. You struggle to have relationships. It takes work to maintain a relationship with anybody. Easiest identifier of a spirit spouse, active and current marriage. That's the easiest way to identify. So that's why I tell individuals, hey, listen, I have a thing of 3 different links that you are really encouraged to go through, because when you go through these links, you will find Dr. Stella Emanuel give you 3 things to go through. And when you go through these 3 prayers, you go through these prayers until you have 0 reaction, and that's when you know you've gotten a decree of divorce from the spirit spouse. So, recently, I sent the set of videos to my cousin Benjamin, who has really had a lot of ups and downs. He's a bit of a loner. And so when I had him, watch the videos, go through the prayers, he said that at one point his ring finger was burning and his downstairs area was kind of burning. I said, yeah, that's the indicator that you are owned. He says, but I was a missionary and I was pure before God. I said, yes, you were. That doesn't say anything about the bloodline before us. And then I told him that, I was taught you go through the prayers until you have no reaction. And he sent back, and I knew he was kidding. He says, What do you mean? It's not a one and done bath? And he says, you know what? That does make sense. In every prayer situation he's ever been in, and he's been a missionary all over the world. If when you pray the first time something didn't happen, you pray it again until the desired result comes forth.
Hate to be real graphic, but Daniel Adams was doing deliverance. The lady was the incubus, and he had to get several towels to put on the couch because the couch was soaking wet.
Wow.
It is what it is, ladies and gentlemen.
So when I hear a woman talk about problem they have with a spouse, or problem they have with a boyfriend, or problem they have with their father or mother, or uncle, aunt, whatever, coworker, I don't hear difficulty with this person. I hear active marriage to a spirit spouse. Now, before I met Tanisha, I had no clue about spirit spouse. No clue. She knew more about that stuff than I did. So when I was telling her that I said to her, it's like April or something. I said, "Listen, I have something to confess to you." She's like, "What's up?" I said, "I have this problem with masturbation and I don't know how to stop." She's like, "That's a spirit spouse." I said, "Spirit what?" She said, "Spirit spouse." I said, "So," she said, "a spiritual being has married your physical body." I was stuck because it made so much sense. I mean, I knew for a fact that I didn't have any desire to go chasing after any of this because it's not who I am. My physical body is not inquiring to find out how many different ways it can abuse itself. My physical body ain't doing that. I knew it was spiritual. I just didn't know the place. And thanks to her, I was able to find the place. Had no clue I had 46 of them, though.
Yeah, and Norman's being Norman aggravated Tanisha's spirit spouse so much that pictures of stuff come flying off the walls.
We'd be talking in Zooms, and we hear this like, what the heck is that noise? She's like, "Oh, that's my pictures falling off the walls again." I don't understand why it's won't stay on the walls. And JP's like, "We're aggravating the spirits." And she's like, "Oh, that makes sense." When Tanisha and I are praying, the upstairs neighbor goes nuts. Those spiritual beings cannot coexist with somebody who prays. Which is this is also why I was advocating so strongly this morning for the individual who got me riled up this morning. That when you pray, it is impossible for your mind to be idle. It's impossible to have days where you're not able to talk to anybody. It's impossible when prayer is the method of communication. Now, I know it can be difficult to just start from one day doing 20 minutes to the next day doing 2 hours. That's a bit difficult. Takes a bit of training. For me, what I would do is I would go to YouTube and I would put on Soak Stream, and within Soak Stream I would let it play, and I would just be doing something else, say maybe playing a game or whatever, and as long as I'd hear scripture going, I would be praying in tongues. And I was just like, I'm just gonna go until I'm sleepy. Well, I finally had to stop that because I'd start at like 10 p.m. and go until like 1 a.m. in the morning. Not even be tired. I'm actually kind of annoyed that I have to go to sleep because I was so wide awake off just praying and playing a game. I'd be wide awake. And the first couple times it didn't make sense. Finally realized that all the praying was so ramping up the spirit man that the spirit man was so awake and so ready to just go that the physical body wanted to go running right along. That's what praying in tongues can do. And also, in the words of Natasha Gurbridge, when you pray, and you pray and you pray and you pray and you pray. You get to the point where your soul becomes so hot that it becomes too hot for any familiar spirit or identity to stay in you. And then you become who God made you to be. How do you get there? You start praying in tongues. How do you stay in there? You stay praying in tongues. But she was talking about, to your point earlier, about not being able to tolerate those who mess with children. She says she has twice now been used to go to various countries where the president of the country had been doing things in such a way that it would prevent any level of religious freedom from happening in that particular country. And she would go into the office of that particular president's office, and she'd say, "This is the word of the Lord. Either you repent or you die." And in every scenario where she walked into the building to say that, within a week, from some type of natural cause, the president would be dead. I've seen from a distance one of them. One of them happened in Tunisia, and it actually made I saw the video on YouTube where it's a mostly clear blue sky, just a few clouds here and there. And all of a sudden, out of a mostly clear blue sky, lightning strikes. So, for the individuals who do the evil things that they do without repentance, you can call down God's judgment on that person. But be sure that you are calling down the judgment out of love for the person, knowing full well that some correction means a loss of a limb or a loss of mobility so that they can come to Christ. But this idea that says, I just have to have a cold shoulder towards that person. No, the person is in a prison serving either an incubus or a succubus, and it's the succubus telling it what to do. And they, in the prison, are being required to obey it. So, if I have any questions, I'll answer questions. If not, we will get started in about 5-6 minutes with the book. Any questions?
I have a question that has nothing to do with what we talked about today, but I keep having dreams, and my mom's like, it's probably because you need to read the Bible. But I'm thinking, I also haven't, because I've been doing tongues because, like, oh, the first day I remembered, and second day I did, and then third day I just completely spaced out about it. And then I'm just like, when I remember, I'm like, I don't want to do it. And then days I don't remember, I'm like, oh. And yes, I need to read the Bible, but I'm just trying to figure out, because I have been having school dreams.
Almost always, when you dream of being in school, it has to do with setback. But if you're having the dreams on repeat, as I wrote on Sunday, Satan doesn't repeat dreams, but God does. So if you are repeatedly having dreams about you being in school, that means God is about ready. God is getting set to train you on something that will reset, not necessarily reset, but that will reset the way in which you see yourself or how you see other people. God's about to train you on something like that.
Oh.
Yeah. If it is just a one, you have a dream and you all right, God, I cancel this dream. But it comes back. Okay, God, you're telling me a message. What's the message? He'll either explain it or give you the dream again. So, any other questions? Good question. Gonna take that as a no. Alright. Well, everybody out in the live stream, this is the point at which I switch over to. Already got the Google Meet muted, but this is the point at which I switch from where y'all get to tag along and have a great old connection. I'm about to start reading from this book. The only way that you can be in on that is to find the recordings over on Patreon or come into the group on Google. So the link is in the description. I'm about to stop streaming to the web and we'll get started. About 2 minutes. Let me do a tad bit. I'm gonna play Google Meet, the song from YouTube that I was talking about earlier. Oh, come on. Oops, not that one. This one.